Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HODLCast. We have very special guest today, Ryan Dennis, and excited to kind of be relaunching the podcast too. This is the first one in a couple years. So, Ryan, thank you so much for joining. And can you give us a little background on yourself and how you got involved in the crypto space?
Absolutely. It's an honor to be a guest on your show. Thank you for having me. Yes, I joined crypto out of necessity, really. I was not doing well financially. I graduated from college in 2011, and like any millennial, you're not doing too great financially right after the recession, right? I was working at Abercrombie and Fitch and Burger King, trying to climb up the corporate operations ladder. Couldn't get ahead, couldn't pay my rent in New York City, like anybody can, right? But I just I couldn't seem to find out why I couldn't save money, why I didn't own anything, why I had a bachelor's degree, and I still was financially unsuccessful. It didn't make sense, right? My parents didn't have a whole lot. They sold and sacrificed many of their own things so that I could have a great education and go to college. And with there not being an inheritance waiting for me, how do millennials kind of scoop themselves or pick themselves up by their bootstraps during that time period? And it's funny, my brother is a futurist. He was studying artificial intelligence and immortality through technology when he was like 14 years old, my older brother. So I got the benefit of being his guinea pig for a lot of his, new quandaries and just his sounding board for any new ideas he had. And he was telling me about Bitcoin for a couple of years. I think he got into it around 2011 or 12. And he put $5 of Bitcoin into a wallet for me. After he asked me for a physical $5 bill when I was going to visit him. I think that was the only bill I had in my wallet during that time. It was when I was visiting him. And I didn't look at it for a year or two, actually. And 2 years later, I was living in California, trying to make it on my own and trying to get into tech, trying to break into the tech world, which I was always interested in. And I was sleeping on my friend's floor, right? And I checked that wallet. I was like, I remember I had some Bitcoin. People kept asking me about Bitcoin. I was like, I actually have some Bitcoin. I looked in that wallet and there was over $2,500 in there. So when I tell you, I needed that money, I really needed it. And it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of me being able to just start being a professional and buying a suit so I could go to a conference and just get a better job. Like it really helped me. And that's when it clicked for me. If this helped me this much on a whim, by mistake, how many more people could benefit from this? And that's when I said, I'm going to get into this industry somehow, some way. And I immediately went to my boss and at my job. I was working in commercial real estate technology at the time. And I said, hey, we should get into blockchain. We should use distributed ledger technology. We should map the control points for the air conditioning energy that we're using so we can share energy between buildings. And of course, he's looking at me with all these, numerals all around, flying around his head, like, what are you talking about? And he straight up told me, blockchain will never be a part of our strategy. And I said, this is not the right person I should be speaking with. And this is not the right company for me to be working at. I need to be around like-minded individuals who really see the vision for this kind of stuff. It's about breaking down walls. And again, being somebody who didn't grow up with a ton, I had a huge wealth of wisdom and knowledge from my parents. And that is enough for people to do their own research, right, Sasha, and get into crypto. So as I began doing my own research, I realized I am not the person who really needs this the most. People in third world countries, so to speak, people who are not paid fair wages for agricultural jobs, people in dire situations, single mothers, widows, orphans, they need cryptocurrency. They need something that they can actually own. And I could go into a whole rant about, the history of Black Americans or in Native Americans, Indigenous Americans, and how they really have never owned much in the United States, right? You don't even own your car, right? The state kind of owns it. It can take it. You barely own your house. You still have to pay taxes on it. Ownership is not something Americans really are familiar with, even though we think we are free. Cryptocurrency is the first thing that I ever really owned that nobody could take from me. So that the whole technology behind it is way above my head technologically, but I get the point. And I feel like I should use as many of my talents as possible to help people. So Anybody who gave me a job in crypto, they took it because I was passionate, not because I'm smarter than anybody or brighter. And I think that's why it's such a great space to get into for anybody.
Oh, Ryan, you gave me chills with that story. I kind of had a similar situation in 2011. Like I had done my MBA, and I had a lot of debt and no job, and I had been working in the financial industry. Like at Franklin Templeton, I got laid off, and I thought, okay, what now? Like no one was hiring. So I went back to school for a year and took out like $100,000 debt to do it. And I still hadn't finished paying off my undergrad degree yet. And then it was like, by the end of the year of school, no one was still hiring. And I ended up having to take a job at Xerox, and it was like, just barely making, barely able to pay. And I ended up like living with my mom for 6 months at that point. Like, and I was, I think 27 or something, and I didn't want to be living with her anymore. At that point, I moved out when I was 18, but like there I was back, and that was all I could afford. I didn't have money in Toronto for rent, not quite as expensive as New York, but then I finally got back into the mutual fund industry, and it was just still so fraught with you just have no control over what the stock prices are going to do. And I was always selling them to investment advisors and trying to, make this pitch that this is the right thing. And then, if it goes down, you just feel like such crap, that you gave a bad investment advice to someone, and it could, it could really ruin people's lives when they invest heavily in something and then the portfolio manager makes a bad choice. So there was one manager though that I really liked, and she started talking about Bitcoin in 2011, and I didn't know how to buy it or anything, but I was just always listening to her about it, and then Joe Rogan and Andreas, and it started to become more and more something I was hearing about. And then finally by 2014, I got in and I got a job paying $20 an hour in Bitcoin, and by the end of law school, again, I was like out of money, and I was on this work visa where I couldn't work in the US, like at a proper job. But that little bit of, money I had earned in Bitcoin was what allowed me to cover like another 6 months of, of living expenses that otherwise I don't know what I would have done. It was just like, it was such a savior that what was probably $1,000 turned into quite a bit more at the time. I wish I hadn't had to spend it, but
right.
The fact that it was there and that it had gone up that much was just like amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I really empathize with you. And I think anybody who's watching this or listening to this, Sasha, can relate, especially millennials. And I think it's just as important for Zoomers, Gen Z, whatever they want to call themselves, probably not Gen Zers. They can relate because we watched our parents, we watched the generation before us really leave us out on our behinds with nothing after the recession and just the amount of greed from that generation's decisions, whether it be stimulus funding, it doesn't matter what happened politically. We were getting paid the same wages that people 20 years older than us were getting paid in the 80s and the 90s, and it doesn't make any sense, right? So crypto is really a savior because you can make a decision with your money. When it comes to money being in a Bank of America debit account, you can't really make a decision on that money. It's not even really sitting in that account. They're just telling you that they own it. And you can get access to some of it when you want to, but they're actually charging you for having that money in that account. They're making their investments while they have that account. Your money is becoming less valuable. When you have a $5 bill in your hand, it's becoming less valuable the longer it sits in your hand. So how do you get ahead, right? It's not always about greed and becoming a crypto millionaire or billionaire. It's not about that. It's about just being able to have something that you can hold on to. And I think now that's kind of a nice segue into NFTs, right? And why it's so hot now, why the metaverse is so big now, why people are so concerned about having new profile pictures and it's madness. Again, it's not about the cryptocurrency or the smart contracts. It's really just about ownership. This is really mine. I really own this. And that is a very foreign concept for us as a people. We're used to really not having anything we need in our hands. If you want to make money and you want to get ahead, you have to work 2 jobs. And that's not right. Some people don't have the ability to do that. Maybe they have kids, taking care of an older parent, And, you know, we can't always trade our time for money, but what crypto is, it's not passive income. It's not a way for us to, you know, scam other people. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not a multi-level marketing scheme, which were a lot of the ways that I thought you were supposed to get ahead in the early 2010s, because that's what people were telling me. I didn't believe in any of that stuff. But when I heard about Bitcoin, it really made me look at my student loans, you know, as you mentioned, as like, it's not that big of a deal. Eventually, I will tackle it with crypto. I had this newfound hope and faith that I could get ahead some way, somehow. So I made the mistakes of day traders and the emotions there. But I think what's really interesting about NFTs is that it kind of gets people who are passively interested in crypto to have an asset that they like, that they enjoy. Having Bitcoin in your account is not that exciting. It's cool, you know, if you like looking at it, but having a profile picture or a 3D image of Spider-Man is really cool to look at. And especially being able to put that in and out of a metaverse where you can play with it as a character on a game like Fortnite or something like that. That's actually a fun way to actually own something. So now we're in this generation where, you know, in 20 years, if you never pay any of your student loans, one of your NFTs, just because of mere inflation, could pay off your student loans eventually, which is wild.
I'm living through that. And my husband gave me a DJ Pepe, which is like the first music token back in, it was the first time we were really talking. We hadn't met yet. I didn't even know what he looked like. I didn't know anything other than his Telegram like name, and made a plan for him to come visit on Valentine's Day of like 2018. And he ended up sending me this DJ Pepe, and now it's worth enough that I could pay off my student loans. I'm holding it. Like, I don't care paying the monthly because I think it's going to keep going up. But
nice.
But it's just it's such a different feeling of like, oh, I could pay those off tomorrow if I wanted to. You know, it's really cool. But it's funny when you say you actually own it, because so many people don't get that you own them. They're like, oh, you're buying nothing. That's a gift. That's not a real thing. Like, that's not tangible. And it's like, it's more tangible than anything in the real world in my view of it. But it's
yeah. Mm-hmm. That's ironic, right? It is oxymoronic to some people. It doesn't make sense, but that's just because they haven't done their own research. And again, I think that there's enough amazing crypto educators out there that if you do find what you like, or maybe you're interested in Bitcoin because you think it'll make you rich. Maybe you're interested in Ethereum because you want to start your own app or DApp or company. Maybe you are interested in Solana because you want to make NFTs and look cool to your friends and make profile pictures. Whatever it is, you know, there is a way that it will click with somebody. Everybody will eventually be into crypto, quote unquote, in some way, shape, or form in the next 5 years. It's kind of inescapable at this point. And I think that for people to understand ownership, like I was saying about your car, right? Your car has whatever, if you live in the United States, your car has the state that you live in's name on it. It has all kinds of smog checks and insurance things. It's actually, you're just managing an asset for the state. And same thing with your house. You know, my wife and I are looking at buying a home, and I'm going through all the rules and white papers for FHA loans and all kinds of things and any grants we can get. And I'm wondering why I never understood any of this stuff in K through 12 education or even in college. How come we never teach anybody about financial education? How come we never share this information with anybody? It's because it is designed to keep us behind. And that is the way of the country, you know, at least in the United States. So for anybody living outside of the United States, you know, if you have real ownership in your country, please reach out to me and tell me about it. I'd love to model that in the US somehow. But here and now, you know, you're basically thrown out to the wolves when you graduate from high school in the United States, if you do graduate. And you were supposed to come up with a way of investing in mutual funds, as you said, which is based on the decisions of people who don't care about you. And you're supposed to buy these assets like a car or a house that usually do not create financial prosperity for you for a decade or two. And a car is obviously a depreciating asset. But crypto is something that is a wild card. It's a fair wild card. If you do the research and you study it and you become excited about it, it's not just that you own something and you shill it because you want the price to go up. You own that asset. So just like you own your own company, you can do marketing for your asset, for your company. And people need to look at it like that. When you own any cryptocurrency, whether it's $5 on Coinbase of Bitcoin or a Bored Ape, you own your own company. That's a real asset. And you can do whatever you want to affect the price of it for yourself and with your friends and with your own network. And every NFT is not going to be valuable to everybody. But what's really interesting here and now is that all of these NFTs, all of these cryptocurrencies are trying to play together. Finally, I remember in 2018 when I was getting into ICO Alert and I was the head of marketing, telling people about all these new ICOs that were starting up, all these ideas. We really investigated them. We really became the brand of trust in a scammy environment during that period of time. And what I understood about people who were investing is that they really did view themselves as venture capitalists. Maybe they only had $20, but they really viewed themselves as their own hedge fund manager, investing in these different ICOs. They got $5 here, $10 there, because if one of them blows up, if one of the prices skyrockets, they really could feed their family for a year. And that's not gambling, right? That's actually what finance is in the United States. So I'm watching as these, hundreds of people are teaching themselves how to become financial advisors for themselves and others. And they don't even have a college education. And so I think now that we have seen the industry mature more, there are real companies with strong infrastructures that can actually build trustworthy business practices that do help people and are not steeped in decades and centuries of stealing like the traditional banks may have. Not all of them want to be bad actors, but it's just the nature of the competition that your job really is to take advantage of people. And I think what crypto does, I'm not going to say that it's anything like Jesus, right? But it is trying to help people in a certain way, because if you do your research, you understand what this utility of this coin is, you can use it as your own asset, and it becomes a Ryan Dennis asset. It becomes a Sasha Hodder asset. It's not owned by somebody else. And I think real ownership can set you free.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so true. And just one thing on the housing front too. I've been following a little bit on the prices, like why it just made no sense to me why the market spiked so much in the housing industry over the past year when everyone, it makes sense in one way that everyone's living at home more and want a nicer space because they're spending more time there. But how does everyone have all this extra money? Well, if you look at it, it's hedge funds that are buying up all the property, and they're going in and putting prices like 60, 70 grand over asking price. And if you look at it, I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I believe it's true. That whole rhetoric of you will own nothing by 2030. Well, if the hedge funds own all these houses, then they can rent them out to everyone. And it really will be, it's a very enticing thing to sell your house and rent for cheaper and think like, oh, the market's going to crash. I can buy back in cheaper later and just do this renting for a short term or something. But and then there's also, like you said about the cars, well, there's a way that the government can adversely possess your land at any time. They just have to, file something, and it's really not something you can fight if the government protects it under an Environmental Act rule or, a lot of different ways that they can adversely possess the land. So with this, maybe we're in late stage capitalism, or I don't know. It's kind of confusing of what it all is going on in the economy, but they can't take your crypto. And I think that's really the only thing that can't be taken. Maybe they do, when CBDCs start rolling out, you see a lot of countries banning crypto, but there's not really a way to ban it that unless you voluntarily send in your Bitcoin, like when they banned gold and people, gave their gold away back to them. Otherwise, it's really looks to me like the only thing you can own. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I appreciate what you said on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The way that people or countries try to ban cryptocurrency, it's sort of how the Second Amendment enthusiasts feel about their gun rights in the United States. Is like, come and take them, right?
Yeah.
Well, they actually
for a gun, we'll give you our bullets.
yeah. It's like the funny thing is, somebody could come to your house and take your stuff, right? But you can't come to my house and make you give me my private keys. I don't have to give them to you. And you see time and time again where the FBI has issues with that, where they try to seize funds. How many times have they tried to seize funds from players that they didn't think were being, really, really good people, right? Which is fair. And it's kind of a dual-headed approach, right? There are bad actors who get away with crime, But I would argue that there's been a lot more bloodshed over the United States dollar than any cryptocurrency, all cryptocurrencies combined, right? Wars, bombs, and I could go on for days. We could go back to the Crusades. Cryptocurrency has hurt a lot fewer people and helped a lot more people than any currency in history. And the reason for that is people actually want to use it to help. And it is a community where we want to help each other. As soon as somebody gets into crypto, it's funny. The first thing they want to do is help other people get into crypto. And it's not like a nonprofit certification you have to get when you own cryptocurrency. It's just, you kind of get this bug, you get this goosebump. And that's why I've been in the industry and I haven't been able to kind of step out, as I realized I'm helping so many people just like make a standard wage, whether they get a job in crypto or they own enough crypto where they can actually have something and feel prideful in. I mean, just having $5,000 in your bank account really makes you feel differently about yourself. Whereas, before I was in crypto, I didn't think that I should have any money. I thought that I should own watches or cars or something, right? Because I didn't understand what the purpose was. So that seismic shift intellectually on ownership, I think actually makes you feel like you need to share that with other people, just as a matter of just us being human beings. I look at ants, right? Ants are they're really strong, they're hard workers, and they always think about the community. I asked my dad when I was younger, like, what is the point of ants? They're so pointless. They don't do anything, right? He said, they're an example for people, what we should be. And I look at crypto people who are addicted to sharing information as ants. They don't know why, but they are just continually trying to study and research to help their friends and network. And then you become that crypto person in your family or your friend, your network, right? Who everybody looks to. When should I buy? When should I sell? So I tell everybody, just do your own research, buy something and just hold on to it and just enjoy that you own something, because it's really rare in this world.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember sitting at dinner with a couple of my friends from law school that were working, in various, one of them works as an insurance defense and window shield glass. Can you imagine?
Wow.
She'll never watch this far into the podcast, but can you imagine that's the job? How exciting, And another works as a prosecutor, doing like putting people in jail over marijuana charges. And anyway, just these jobs that just like totally would not thrill me to do. But whatever, each to their own. But anyway, they were like, why are you so into Bitcoin? I don't see like it, they just thought it was the same as like a MasterCard or Visa. And they're like, how do you do a podcast about it at that? It was when I was starting my podcast years ago. And anyway, it was just, it's hard to explain to people that don't get it, what it is and why once you catch the bug, it's like you said, you have to talk about it and find other people that are interested in it. And everything else becomes so boring. Like any conversation that isn't about Bitcoin, I don't want to say any conversation, but I really have, it's all I want to focus my time and thought power towards. And it's been such a rewarding journey being involved in it, and all the like-minded and really cool people that you meet along the way with it too. Yeah, absolutely.
And you see the other part of it is every single industry is now grasping for Bitcoin.
Yeah, now they're all coming in.
Now they're all coming to us, and they all want to be a part of the conversation. And this is still the beginning. And what you were saying about I think this is really a really short period of time, by the way. For anybody who was watching this, whether you own a bunch of crypto or not, I think that you should feel inspired to evangelize this technology and this currency for everybody, because this is a really short period of time before the white-haired investment managers and asset managers of the major global conglomerates really get into Bitcoin and really get into crypto. I think crypto just passed, 1 trillion market cap. And it's just becoming a global, entity, I guess you could say, as big as electronics or fashion. It's just getting there, but it will touch every single part of every industry and be everywhere in the next 5 years, maybe 7 years max, and when that happens, it will be too late for you to feel like you're ahead of crypto. So now is such an amazing time where you can be ahead of the industry. You can be ahead of the financial world. They're still very, very they have so much self-importance that what they're doing is the right thing. And the way that they make decisions, taking advantage of the environment, destroying the Amazon, hurting indigenous peoples in different countries around the world by abusing their land to build oil pipelines and stuff like that. That's the status quo. And when crypto people have touched every industry, because every industry is reaching for crypto, when that has happened, you will see that goosebump of like, I just love crypto and I want to help people. That kind of vibe will spread to all of these industries. Being climate neutral will be important because it's about the community. You know, people care about Bitcoin because it's about the community. Anytime you start a cryptocurrency or you see a new coin, they're always shilling their community because that's what's important. And that's totally backwards from every bank, where it's about the centralized entity. And it's not that every single person needs to have an equal vote to change every single organization touching Bitcoin. It's not about decentralized versus decentralized. What it's really about is, are you actually helping people or not? And we want to be able to see you prove it. And I think that from a cultural standpoint, it might be the only way to save the world.
Yeah, and just the developments, like, you know, we've all known the world can't sustain on its current like oil, and you know, all just from, there's a lot of problems with what we're doing, but I think crypto is going to be what moves our energy consumption into a more sustainable, like solar based or whatever it ends up being. It's just, you know, this is what's going to drive that change. And I remember always wondering, like, everything has to be financial driven. Like, no one's going to shift unless it's profitable for them. It's just not the way things work. But now with Bitcoin mining, like, it is profitable to invest and find ways to, like, you know, use the sun to mine Bitcoin. And I hope we see stuff like that, you know, coming more, because I think the one thing a little worried about is the crypto's dependence on the power grid. But if we can move the power grid to a more decentralized way, but the more big companies come in, then we know that they're going to help, you know, keep that power grid turned on and everything. But and then the satellite stuff happening is pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, I think we need to, maybe part 2, we'll talk about that. And again, anytime you have a conspiracy theory, I'm down to chat about it, you know. But you really touched on something, right, as well, which is giving back and sharing, and we can't really overlook the pandemic, right, and COVID-19 and how that has changed the world. And I think another thing that crypto does that people don't realize is that it creates social connection and a real community, because the currency is based on a community. It breaks down those walls and those barriers. So breaking down those walls and barriers is really important online when we can't hang out with our friends and we're scared to visit our parents, you know, things like that. The world has changed, it's different. So I think another thing that's coming out of the crypto world is really this blockchain-driven meta economy that's happening with the metaverse, you know, through large-scale networks like Meta and InView to discrete channels like Discord and Telegram. The immersive reality of the internet, I think people call it Web3, has already begun changing our lives and replaced those connections that we missed. One of my favorite things about going to Starbucks.
Find that for anyone that's listening, that Web3, I think it has myself, I still don't even exactly know what the word means. So maybe can we start there with our metaverse conversation? What really is Web3?
I think that when I think of Web3, there are many definitions, and I think anybody can Google it better than I can say it. But I think what's really important about Web3 is it is the combination. It is the intersection of everything we love about the internet with everything that we want to love about money coming together finally. So again, we're talking about the entire first part of this podcast about how backwards education and how backwards, you know, money is in our world. And so what we're doing on the internet right now with cryptocurrency is modeling what a better financial system would be. The problem is that we can't bring that into the real world as quickly as we'd like to. So what's happening is people are building other worlds online where you can literally walk around, go into a chat room, make friends, find love, find networking partners, find people to start companies with. Everything that we love to do in the real world can now be done on the internet as well. And I'm not just talking about Tinder. I'm talking about actual, real life social connections that you miss about the real world. I love going to Starbucks, right? But the best part about going to Starbucks is seeing that barista that really knows how to make my brown sugar latte the right way. It's not just the latte. It's not just the product. We're humans and we're lonely and we want these social connections and we want to find real friendship. And the metaverse allows us to do that. Now, Web3, what I think about that is not just having a video game with this walled economy, where if I buy some credits and I'm living in I love this video game, I play it 8 hours a day, but I put all my energy, all my time, and even my money into this game, and I never really get anything out of it except for that social vibe. But I think Web3 is, let's make it three-dimensional, where I can actually get money out of the metaverse as well. So what we need to do now is build these infrastructures for these online worlds where instead of me just paying money for these virtual credits, if people are paying me because I'm running a nightclub in a virtual video game, then I should be able to take that money out and actually pay my rent with it. If I'm a very successful creator and I know how to design metaverse worlds or lands or stores or even clothing for people to wear on their social avatars, then I should be able to actually make money and pay my car note out of that, right? I should be able to have an open, exchange between my metaverse world and the real world. And I think that's really what the goal of Web3 is to break down those walls. So I think number one, when I think about usernames, domain names, avatars, portals, all of these, new social, digital assets that we love and we're familiar with, they've opened the door for so many options for us to be whatever we want socially, right? Which is why profile pictures and usernames are great NFTs that are very popular, right? But as our unlimited means of self-expression continue to grow, so too does the need for us to shape and expand the breadth of conceivable use cases and infrastructures for others. So people want a metaverse with as many options as real life. We want the metaverse to be like Ready Player One. Or like a real fun world where we can actually escape. But we also want real life interactions there to continue. And we want them to be replicated as a central strong theme within the metaverse that's centered around how we live and experience real life. And what's inevitable is that when we build this better online money like Bitcoin, is we're going to find out how to build a better world, how to be more equitable, how to be more fair, how to be better people. And I think it's really exciting to see that our innermost desires will become mega trends online. Right now, what we wear, how we make friends, networking for our business, finding love will always come first. And as we improve the operations of our dreams and imaginations online, it'll spark genius ideas across every industry like cryptocurrency and bring every economy closer than ever before. So therefore, anything that contributes to your persona in the metaverse will syllogistically change how we see ourselves here on Earth. Everything from fashion to collectibles and more. So Web3 is a gigantic world. It's just like when you first learn about how serious it is to make wine and how much the history is behind it. It's like drinking from a fire hose, just learning about it. But I would say whatever your favorite thing is in the world that you love to do in real life, there is a Web3 version of that. There is a metaverse for that, or there is a small rinky-dink startup trying to develop that. You should join them. You should work for them. You should contribute to them. You should start your own. You should buy an NFT to contribute to some community and really make that world online so that we have something to model here in the real world. Because I feel like the internet is getting so far ahead of where we are in the real life. But at the end of the day, we still have to breathe and drink water.
And procreate.
Yeah.
I went to a New Year's party in Crypto Voxels. My husband was hosting it actually at his DJ Pepe's place, and it wasn't well planned. It just came together that day. Everyone in their in the counterparty community or these fake rare community were wondering what to do that night, and it turned into a big party in there, and everyone was dancing in the sky, and the music was awesome, and it all the art. I really felt like I was at a club, and I'm someone that every New Year's I was out partying from the time I remember being 15 or so. So the last year I was very pregnant on New Year's, and this year we just hadn't made any real plans, and it felt really kind of it's New Year's, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden we're on this thing, the chat's really lit up, everyone's throwing fire emojis up, and a few people gave me some clothes because my avatar didn't have, I didn't have that many wearables.
Right.
And then I got the idea the next day. I was like, geez, I wonder if I would be better off like just spending the next year making wearables, like designing all these cool clothes. I don't have the skills to do it, but I was thinking like, how hard is it to learn how to design some clothes on there? And it seemed to me like just so many people are going to be needing these, outfits to wear when they get to the metaverse. And anyway, I went and bought a bunch of domain name, like those .eth names. And I tried to make like a t-shirt and that was as far as I got with it. I haven't gone back to it, but there are a lot of skilled people doing it. And I've seen there's like the sneakers coming out, like some of the people designing these like wearable sneakers, they're just absolutely beautiful. And then now they're starting to make them in real life too. So you get your NFT sneaker and then you can pay a little extra and get a real pair shipped to you. And so, you can have both, but it's really cool what's happening with it, I think.
Well, when you release your line of HODLCast gear, I'm definitely going to buy some and wear it in the metaverse. And I think you make a really good point where, people used to, make food in their kitchen and sell it, to their neighbors to make an extra dollar, right? Or mow your neighbor's lawn. But now it's to a point where you can just take watch a couple of YouTube videos or something and learn how to make some wearables. And you can actually, maybe get a nicer car than your normal one, or maybe, finally get that pair of Yeezys that you couldn't afford. It's really interesting to see, but there are people who actually are feeding their families and actually being providers with the metaverse, with games like Axie Infinity and other, play to earn is a real thing. And so I think people really need to take it seriously, that the world is changing. And this is an opportunity for people who don't have much to get ahead. And I think that is something we should really pay attention to, because if you do have a lot of resources and you do have extra money, you should think about how you should start a company to help other people build themselves up and help themselves create their own career in the metaverse. It's more fun to create items in the metaverse than it is to do taxes and do accounting. And, again, that's for me. I don't have that personality, right? But you see how difficult it was to do your taxes in the 90s versus how it is now. You can really pay somebody to kind of handle it for you and really walk you through it. That's how it should be for everybody.
You literally just click through and it tells you what to put, like it gives you all the suggestions and stuff. Like it's become so easy compared to before needing to like go take a book out, from the library and like read what the tax code says about that. I don't know if that's really how it was, but
everything should be easier.
Everything's so much easier now. Yeah.
And it should be like that. I remember there was a time not too long ago when, it was very difficult to make a PowerPoint presentation. And now you have to make a deck once a day just to have a regular job anywhere. And I remember how difficult it was to be, on WebEx or one of these online chat rooms to do an online presentation. And now it's second nature to click onto Zoom for some people. It's going to become second nature for people to make wearables, to make their own clothes, to design their own persona, and to allow people to express themselves. And I think it's really cool, but I think it's even cooler that people can actually, pay for their kids to eat, with that kind of funding. And it's not hurting anybody. It's not, it's not difficult for them. And I think the other part of it is people who are disabled, who can't go out and about and do some of these jobs. And especially in the pandemic, if they're high risk, then they can't go out in the world and risk it. Now they have the internet to actually create their own lives, have their own persona, have their own personality, and have real friendships that are authentic with the amazing level of social presence you see on games like With Me and In View, where you can actually have a real friendship with somebody and they don't need to know what you really look like. You can be whoever you want to be. And I think that's another way that we can combat bullying and online bullying, is if there's more metaverses, you can just leave this game and go to another game. But if you're a creator or producer, you can start your own business today, make your own money, and you don't need a degree. And I think that's really important for a lot of people. And that's going to be something that everybody likes. Everybody likes working from home. I don't care who you are. Maybe you like meeting people. Maybe you're an extrovert, but you can't tell me that being able to get up and take a nap and then go to a meeting is not better than being stuck in an office where you just can't wait to go home and it's 5 o'clock.
I don't know how many times I slept in my car when I was, or under my desk when I worked at like office jobs. Like, I just shut the door, or like even I worked at the bank or TD Ameritrade. Like it was like literally a bunch of cubicles, and I would just try and sneak under there, or go to the sick room, because sometimes you just need a nap through the day. Like it's 10 minutes, and it's such a recharge. And so, yeah, I love being able to work at it, but I don't find I need the nap anymore. I'm not as tired. Like I'm not, it just, the whole, like, traveling on the subway to the office and all the, all the different social interactions. Some of it are great with your friends, but a lot of it, it just takes energy. And I just find I have more energy staying at home versus being out and about in the world all day. But
yeah, and you mentioned you had a baby. First of all, congratulations on having a family and everything. And I have 3 kids, and this is the first generation of moms and dads who get to watch their kids grow up. You know what I mean? Like really, really, since like we were all agricultural, or cavemen, right? Since we were really all out in the fields working together, society actually created a distance between our kids and parents. And so now being able to work from home, I mean, it's life-changing to watch my daughter, grow up. And then I remember I was working at a really prominent crypto company during my parental leave, and I got called in for an emergency, right? And it was I decided to quit. A week later, I was like, I can't do this. I can't be ripped away from my family. And then a few weeks later, the pandemic started. And it's really interesting to see how our lives really are improving and changing. But I think I want to help everybody make the most out of the situation. I think it is a better lifestyle for you to decide if you want to go outside or not, or if you want to have a life online. The internet can save a lot of people's lives, and I think just not enough people know about it yet. So the other thing is, I started going through ancestry.com and learning about my family history and learning about, what my family, really is and where we come from. And I can date my family back to really close to the Mayflower in the United States, right? And so what's really interesting is my kids will be able to go on ancestry.com after I'm dead, and my great grandkids will be able to go on one of these sites and see me and see my portfolio of assets that they owned from when I bought, which is really, really cool. Because when I look at, my furthest back relative, some of the only things I could find was like a marriage certificate or a document that said that these people worked in the field, or I have family members that own slaves. And so it's like, we need to be able to really, it's not about self-importance and making yourself feel like you're going to live forever and have all these things. But I think really getting to know the story of who we are and where we come from as a society, and knowing that this online world could save us, is really, really important. And I think it's important for our kids to know what ownership is and what really is important to us, which is having a family, it's caring about each other, and it's being able to just move on and follow your dreams and being a good person. And if you can't do that, that's not fair. But there is a way to make a financially successful life for yourself on Web3, in the metaverse, with these social games, with the internet, with cryptocurrency. And you don't need a finance degree. You don't need to be an incredibly talented lawyer like Sasha Hodder to get ahead, right? Because you see, even people like us, we really struggle to get where we are. But I think real ownership, real assets could make things a lot easier. So we can spend more time making the world a better place than just scrapping by and surviving.
Yeah. And when you're not so focused on like, where's your next paycheck coming from, or like your when you have the core things you need to survive, then the creativity can really come in a lot more, because otherwise you're just stuck in a stressful, constant worry state. Whereas when your bills are paid, you can focus on the more fun things in life.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll be a lot nicer to each other, and cyberbullying will go down, So I'm really excited. I
Although
don't know.
on that topic, oh my goodness, I've been in a few chats where the girls are coming back saying that they're getting like hit on really aggressively in the metaverse when they go in. So I think it's a little bit of a different culture there where everyone's anonymous. I haven't experienced it, but it sounds like a little undesirable. You're trying to fly around in your spot and some guys like chatting at you saying gross things or something. But
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the other thing is there are companies like Spectrum that actually monitor the language of different conversations in chat rooms or metaverses, and they can actually automate moderation for these companies to track what is inappropriate language, who's a scammer, who is trying to be, yeah, I mean, basically these molesters and abusers and pedophiles and these people who are doing terrible things on the metaverse, they should be caught, they should be identified, and that information should be saved and to make for safer communities. That policing is a big deal as well within the metaverse, and it's really, really serious. And I think that anybody who is working in a different industry, that's what I mean by everybody can find a job in Web3. I would love for there to be more people working in this space because we need more creativity around how to make it a better place, a safer environment for everyone else. And there are metaverses now that are being built specifically for kids that are heavily moderated so that they can have an online world that is safer than Instagram, that is safer than Twitter or some of these other places where, there are attackers, there are dangers. And with having kids, when I was a kid, I didn't care about, somebody, when we were kids, they used to say like, do you know where your kids are? It's 10 o'clock, right? But now it's like it's 9 a.m. and your kids are in danger if they're on the internet. So I think it's really important that people take these kind of conversations and say, hey, how can I help? There's so many different worlds. Everything that you're interested in the real world, you're concerned about, it needs to be put online and needs to be developed. So that's why I've dedicated my life to working in this space. It doesn't need to be crypto. It's not all about crypto or Bitcoin. It's about just making sure that the internet world is a better restart than the world we have here, which is steeped in prejudice, which is steeped in sexism, steeped in racism, anti-Semitism, and everything in between. And I think we have a fresh start with the internet. And it really does start with protecting women as well, I believe, because when I look at society, I don't think it's racism that's my biggest problem coming up in the world, or I don't even think it's not having money. I think it is the abuse of women and the way we don't take women seriously from many different perspectives. Because when you dislike or oppress women, you're actually subconsciously hating your mother. You're dishonoring your mother. You've been born by a woman. And that means you subconsciously dislike yourself because that's where you come from. And so when you have that level of self-hatred, and then that opens you up for hatred to anyone else. So I think from my perspective, my job, when I was a kid, I always hung out at the girls' table. And I always was, the teachers would call my parents and say, Ryan's hanging out with the girls. He doesn't want to play with the boys because the girls were nicer, and I find that I hope that the metaverse becomes a safer place. And right now I'm working with an organization called MetaJuice, and it puts blockchain driven assets to power the economies of metaverses like InView, which has 1 million daily active users. Now that app has a majority female audience. There's over 50 million different collectibles and clothes that you can wear and use and interact with on that metaverse. Oh. And I think that kind of metaverse is a great example for what crypto should be looking at and taking seriously. The beauty industry is going to have a field day when they understand how to use the metaverse. It's going to create so much self-empowerment for women, for single mothers who are generally ignored by the powers that be. And I feel like if we don't start taking seriously how we can help single mothers and looking at these different ways to empower women of the world, we're never really going to have a different world on the internet. So I think, again, a fresh start with the internet is really what I'm excited about. And I hope that everybody jumps in.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, you're painting a very nice picture for it. And I'm excited about the world that's coming. But what about, what do you think about the traditional jobs? Like, do you think everyone's going to be able to just switch over, or what do you see as like the time frame for this future? Like, where's it going for the older generations? I mean, I think they'd probably nursing homes and people that are sick or, just can't move as much, it's probably going to be something that they love, but we still need real world things and we need people to build them. And if everyone's focused all their time on building things online, what happens to our real world industries?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, I used to work in executive recruiting, and being a recruiter is incredibly difficult because people lie and companies lie, and it's very difficult to be a matchmaker for jobs. But I feel like the speed hiring era is beginning right now. Unemployment is at a pandemic era low of 3.9% right now. And companies all over the world are really trying to hire as many people as possible, even despite social distancing and all of those things. A lot of companies are profiting from it because they can keep core people at home. I used to work at Burger King Corporation, and I worked at the headquarters for a little while. And the CEO used to say, this headquarters is the biggest waste of our company because we don't make any money in here, right? So now with everybody working from home, how much money is being saved? How much energy is being saved? How much gas is not being used? So it is a way for companies to be more profitable. And with there being more jobs and more money for these companies to use their money wisely, I think it doesn't matter how old or young you are. I think if you're willing to do your research and understand a little bit about whatever industry you want to, you can do whatever you'd like online. So I hope that the real gig economy is beginning now. And again, every single job that exists in the real world will be associated with crypto at some point. So again, whatever you're interested in, seriously do some research on what that industry will look like in 5 years and do some thinking. And if it doesn't exist, you should be that person to start that company and build that. And I think, I even looking at my mother, she has an incredible career in nonprofit development. She's raised millions of dollars for companies like Habitat for Humanity and the National Society for Black Engineers and everything in between. And the way she used to do that was by going to these conferences and having these huge galas and these big events where you're trying to wine and dine rich people to give money to your nonprofit, but have those events in the metaverse. Throw events online where people can get together and chat, and you don't really need to spend or waste a lot of money and do those things, because the real money should go to the people in need. It shouldn't go to these fancy parties. So again, any realm you think about, it can be blockchained and can be cryptoed and whatever verb you want to use there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it all.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, where can people find you if they want to get in touch or ask you questions or anything?
Oh, wow. Well, if you want to get in touch with me, you have to go to my wife first because she rules my life. I live at home. I'm joshing, but yeah, I'm a fairly private person, but I am on social media. So you can find me on LinkedIn. My Twitter is NFTs Dennis. So hopefully that's cool enough for people to remember and at me. But more than anything, if you want to find me, I think where you're going to find me is on the metaverse. Do your own research, learn about what you want to do, and eventually you're going to run into me. And I think that I'm excited about the world is headed. And I'm really excited about this podcast. I'm going to be a faithful listener. I know that Sasha is a mega star. I got the opportunity to work with you. And I got to say, definitely one of the top talents I've ever experienced in my 12 years being in the business world. So you have a really bright future. And I think wherever you're at, I'm going to be following, right? And making sure that anybody that you associate with, I'm following their story as well. So I'm really excited about where you're headed.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. And vice versa. I loved working with you. And yeah, I'm glad we're staying in touch. And I was always telling my husband who he doesn't have like a marketing manager right now for his Fake Rare website. And I was like, you just need a voice like Ryan's, like, they're telling everyone about it and enthusiastic about it. Like, I just find you're really energetic, the way you speak and very knowledgeable and interesting. So I really appreciate you taking the time out today to speak with me, and hopefully, we continue staying in touch.
Absolutely. And so let me know where I can subscribe to any of the other podcasts. Whenever you guys get some swag, we'll buy a t-shirt and stuff like that. But yeah, so hopefully, we can actually build some other organizations and connections to bring other people, and filter more people to this industry. Because, definitely believe that the smartest people in the world are working in our space and are running to our space. And so if anybody's looking for work, I also do offer mentorship for individuals. And I love guiding people and helping them find jobs. I love helping people find jobs because I'm not a recruiter. Being a recruiter is very difficult, but I'm always looking for opportunities to reach out and help people. So even your husband, if he needs a marketing person, I may know somebody as well. So the more the merrier. And again, congratulations on your podcast coming back. Hitting the subscribe button right now.
Thanks, Ryan. All right. Well, you have a great afternoon.
You too. Take care.